before we dive into today's agenda, I would like to introduce Daniela Peredo from Caisse Centrale de Réassurance. So the Caisse Centrale de Réassurance is a key player in reinsurance, especially in France, working closely with the government to provide coverage for natural disaster. So Daniela, if you would like to introduce yourself briefly, the floor is yours, one of our partner beneficiaries, and we look forward to our insight in the coming discussion. If you would like to say a few words or present yourself.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Yes, I am Daniela. I am natural catastrophe modeler at Caisse Centrale de Réassurance in France. It is a public reinsurer in France, and we are very concerned by all natural catastrophes in France, since we cover 98% of the French market.
Thank you very much. So we didn't really involve you in the first reporting period, but we hope that in the coming month we can benefit from your insight. So I just wanted also to say some words about the community of practice update and the next steps. So our community of practice, the objective is that it will grow, of course. And for now, the community of practice is limited to the project consortium, but with the aim is to involve external participants soon. And so we will add a participant form in the SOTERIA website in order that allow external participants if they want to join this community of practice. We also, the key insight from the community of practice will be in the SOTERIA newsletter, thanks to Daniela. And then we also are exploring new communication channels because we are in Teams, so maybe Slack or another communication channel, but to foster knowledge sharing. And we hope that we will discuss this in the dedicated community of practice session during the General Assembly. We'll discuss the topics, the format and your needs, and also the best way to strengthen the engagement. So I don't want to take more time for the presentation, just to introduce a little bit today's session. It's about how to develop innovative insurance solution for public and private buildings. And we choose this topic because there is a lot of happening within SOTERIA, including the task force in Gabrovo. Also, the Mitigate is also more and more involved in the project, and also there are a lot of progress in each case study. And the objective of the community of practice is to share this best practice between practitioners. And I think it's also good to have the same, to know what is going on in each case study. The community of practice is a great opportunity to share your current needs also and difficulties, and perhaps all the members can provide insight and support. So really use the community of practice as a exchange knowledge, learn from one another, and the idea is to stay aligned on the key development. So now I let the floor to Polina and Kamelia if you want to present your presentation. Just stop sharing.
Okay. Good morning from Sofia. I will start with the presentation and then Polina will continue. Let me share my screen. Okay. What we want to present today with Polly is to go briefly through our insights actually about our understanding, knowledge about the barriers and drivers for the low penetration, actually for improving the level of penetration climate insurance in the region of Gabrovo. Then we will present briefly some ideas about behavioral and awareness solutions, and then Polly will present the ideas about innovative insurance solutions. We have information from surveys which we conducted for Gabrovo. These were online conducted surveys with on the principle of those who responded. These were not representative surveys, and of course this is reflected in the results. We surveyed businesses and citizens We have shown these results before, but now to give the context for actually our decisions about solutions, you can see that most of the people who are insuring their property, their assets, are motivated by their understanding and knowledge about the increasing risk from disasters, mainly because of their trust to the insurers. And we get the confirmation of this, we reconfirm these statements through the opposite question, why people don't buy insurances. And this is because they actually don't know that there is such risk. I didn't expect to have losses. And then another barrier is the cost of the insurance. We have summarized the barriers and drivers on the side of the supply and the demand in this table. On the side of the supply, and Polly will not focus probably on this but today, but the main barrier is usually stated as lack of data, which is not a surprise. And on the side of the demand for the clients, these are the low risk of awareness, some cultural factors, and these are mainly the inherited from the socialist time dependence on the state, plus the specific general scientism towards all types of services and organizations, and this is described in the Bulgarian sociology. One reason and one barrier is the unaffordability of the premium and mistrust to the insurance industry. And this mistrust, I know that it exists in many countries, but here for Bulgaria, we think that one of the reasons is the way the insurance sector was re-established after the changes. What are the proposed actions, behavioral solutions, awareness and behavioral solutions, to have awareness campaign to better understand and concretize the climate risks and insurance and the role of the insurance, to use one technique which in the behavioral sciences is called cost flipping, and to frame the insurance not as expenditure but as an investment. And here the solution probably would be to work on the national level and to combine the efforts of many insurers to come up with a unified campaign. Another technique which is studied and described by Professor Kahneman is the so-called loss aversion, which means to showcase the expected losses versus cost of premium and show the real loss of value if you don't insure your property, and actually show what is at the stake. And this is something which needs to go in the messages, both of the public institutions, but also of the insurers. One proposal to the insurance sector is to provide as a separate service free consultations using the model of the banks who provide these services for free when they offer their credit. Idea is to have an awareness campaign together between insurers and local authorities. And before I give the floor to Polly to continue, I want to excuse myself. I will turn off my microphone but I'm not in my usual working environment. I'm now in another conference, and there is not very
Should
good.
I take the screen for you, or you're going to?
I will share. Do you want you to
Okay,
share?
no, yes, you can.
I will continue. I will
Yeah.
continue. Yes, I'm switching off my microphone so that you don't hear this noise here.
So what we are trying to test in Gabrovo is actually the innovative insurance solution that we are discussing is actually following the regulatory expectation and the already widely discussed so-called impact underwriting model, which is more or less expected to evolve. But I think still not fully or not entirely implemented. What is the most important here is that insurance should play a vital role in assessing and signaling the risk. And incorporating in the model risk-based premium and incentives for the risk reduction and lowering the total loss. This is very important in order to really have an impact on the affordability and availability of the insurance in this trend for the increasing losses from the NatCat coverage, natural disaster coverage. Also, as it was already mentioned by Kamelia, we should try to bring back the trust and to ensure that we are providing product which is transparent, understandable, comprehensive, and also to have procedures for to streamline the payout, especially after the large-scale events. And the last two features is already in the center of most of the insurers in Desita, especially we are trying to put in the center of the client needs in the center. So more or less we are working on this, but something that is still not implemented, especially in Bulgaria, is a risk-based premium, which are flat for NatCat coverage. And risk reduction measures are really implemented only for the biggest clients in the most cases. On the next slide, it's so-called flood maps and flood models, because when we are talking about risk-based premiums, we should take into account first of all that we are the first risk that will be taken here, it will be the flood risk, which is one of the, I think, the biggest NatCat threats. So the flood risk assessment will be made based on these flood maps. The point is that there are private models here that we are using. It was mentioned by Kamelia that we are lacking publicly available database which could be used by the insurers. There are some which are not considered useful for us because it's not granular enough. And the insurer are using their own models based on the geographical data, historical flood patterns, and precipitation data. So based on that, we should determine the flood zone of the particular property. So the other premium adjustment that we are trying to implement and to test is exactly these risk reduction measures, should be offered to the property in the higher risk zones, and eventually these measures to bring them into the lower risk category. And for example, from the properties in the third zone, after some measures offer to them. They should be able to go in the two and even in one. The next slide, please. So the risk reduction measures, which are in the core center of the impact on the writing. What are the benefits? It was already mentioned, but it should be noted that here we are sharing the cost and responsibilities with the policyholders and reducing this is so-called moral hazards. You know, this is when the policyholder are inclined to take more risky behavior after getting insured. This is solution could be the only solution in the high risk zones. For example, zone 4 could be uninsurable, maybe not accepted unless some measures are taken. And also tackling one of the main barriers, as it was mentioned in the beginning, for the low uptake of disaster coverage. This is the price and price perception. I think should be more clear here that this is not so much the unaffordability. This is, as it was mentioned, but it is more like price perception. Actually, yesterday I found out here in our group that in Bulgaria we have one of the lowest premium levels for the property insurance, while in the same time we have one of the highest premium for the casco. And you know that casco is widely more uptake than the natural NatCat coverage. That's why actually here we should take into consideration that pricing alone will not be efficient unless this not done along with already presented awareness, increasing of the awareness, increasing of the risk awareness of the natural disaster and climate change implication on that, and what will be the benefits for the clients to invest in risk preventive measures, adaptation measures. And the partnership with the local authorities is also, and the national authorities are also will be very effective because we should take into account that these risk reduction measures will increase only the flood risk, which is part of the premium, and actually the NatCat coverage is part of the whole property coverage. So in order to be more incentivize the client, they should be maybe some other kind also of incentives, like in some countries subsidizing these improvements of the home of these measures. And on the next slide, this is the trickiest question here, and the most in the question of the questions is what will be that reduction measures, how to select them, and how actually to ensure that they are effective. So here within the project we should try to find out maybe something, but one of the practices already used in the corporate underwriting. This is some advice from the risk engineers. But as I said, this is for the biggest producing plants. Different kind of measures which are here mentioned: anti-return valves, flood barriers, elevation of some structure which are too low, and different kind of materials. This is all already described in the document of the European technical guidance of the European Union issued previous year. So these are some ideas there. But for the individual assessment, there are different kind of tools already. We heard in Germany they have this green certificate. Here for Gabrovo, we already discussed with our SOTERIA partner Mitigate. They are also providing such kind of tool especially for flood prevention measures. And we should further investigate how that could be used on the individual level of the the property, what kind of advices and recommendations actually it will issue for the specific property. I also think that the link between the disaster resilient and energy efficient building should be more should be strengthened somehow, because although there is no direct link, especially described in some materials, there is such a link. And even in the taxonomy for the energy efficient home, one of the criteria for not significant harm criteria actually is to be resilient somehow and to be adaptable to the new conditions. So in any case, that will be value added for the insurer. If there is energy efficient home, also it will be assigned for a resilient home. Also for the local authorities will be very, how to say, to try to test, maybe not here and now, but different kind of reduction measures on the community level, like nature-based solutions, or another kind of infrastructural measures. The point is what kind of risk assessment they're going to use. If we have only private models, this is the point here, and to also to use this information to update their regional climate adaptation plans. And, this is the from us for this from now. Back to you, Jana.
Thank you very much, Kamelia and Polina. We can have like one or two questions before the Sina presentation. Is anyone has some question? Go on, Alexander.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Maybe just to reiterate what Polina has already mentioned, because implementing such solutions, it's not only about thinking about the, let's say, the losses, economic losses. It's about thinking about so-called non-financial KPIs, and those KPIs are actually reflected in the taxonomy. So it's a list of concrete KPIs which should be met, so to speak, which means you have to think not only about how to avoid economic losses, you have to think about how to improve the situation or avoid losses to environmental, social, and governance components. So it's becoming, let's say, a bit complicated, but it's exactly what we could also contribute from our side. Yeah.
You mean for in the taxonomy for the energy efficient home?
There is a section on new constructions, so to speak, with do not significant harm section, and within this section you can find concrete KPIs which should be met. Not only for climate adaptation, for social. Yeah, for other different. So it's like it's not only to meet like step-by-step requirements, how to develop the product, but it's also about how to meet the complete non-financial KPIs. So it's also important to make sure that your product will be, let's say, will have this type of sustainable insurance product.
Yeah, this is very important. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so maybe we can. Oh, Mia, go on.
Have you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
you. Because can you tell me if you in the insurance, if you verify, or if you diversify something called the pluvial flooding, which is when it's raining a lot in a city and you have stormwater. Of course, you can have part of it into sewage backup, and then you can have help from a valve. But what we see is that more and more extreme rains in cities. People are moving to the cities are growing, and the water is more on the surface. So it's called stormwater. Are these considered as flooding, or what we also call fluvial flooding in the insurance natural catastrophe, Polina?
Yes, the flood from heavy rains is also part of the coverage. Also, for the flood maps that we are using right now also this is really one big part of the risk zone assessment.
Yeah, because what we have seen is that well, in Norway we don't cover this under the natural catastrophe because we believe that this is a problem, typically city problem with old pipes and asphalt and etc. So it's not a river. It's there. So we don't call this a flooding. So that's a typically more stormwater. So and you have to separate. You know that creates a totally different preventive measures than in a river. Because in a river, if you have a house and your house is hit by the river, what can you do? You know, how can you, as a person who were allowed by the government, by the local government to build there, what can you do as an insured in this situation?
I cannot answer you exactly what could be done because this is really something that we think should be done on the taking into account the local and the individual circumstances. If this is even now, it's clear that this is on the too low place when there is river somewhere near. Even now, it's clear that the risk will be higher, but there are different other places which we rely on this risk assessment, which take into account also participation data from the our Natural Meteorological Institute. And there are different, for example, for big industrial plants, I know that they have sometimes recommendation for electricity. I don't know even how this is called, to be elevated.
Yeah, okay.
To be elevated, or the water usually comes from the canalization from the. So there are different anti-return bounds, which is usually important not to bring the water directly inside from the.
Yeah. But we can discuss that later when I'm in.
But this is a specific. This is the most trickiest part, actually.
Because it really have to diversify. Because if you're in the city or if you're flooding upriver, it's a totally different issue. You know what you can do or not do. So, and who should pay, etc. I think Michaela's hand is so I will stop there.
I can't speak for the insurances and insurance companies, but I can speak for what Gabrovo municipality is doing in terms of possible flooding. It's not a project I'm involved directly in, but I have knowledge of my colleagues working on a very big project called Mount Resilience. And one of the ideas of that project is to develop an early warning system for flooding, and I think fires as well. And a part of the, there is an old building attached to directly next to the river in Gabrovo, in the city center, where they can use it and utilize it, storage for stormwater. So that's what's been developed. That's apart from SOTERIA, of course, and the additional data that we'll gather and analyze. So that's just, yeah, what I was planning to add.
Thank you very much. I think we have to jump to the other presentation, because we don't have sufficient time. So, Sina, do you want to present? We will key insight into the demand side decision making.
I have some very nice complementary notes for the things that Kamelia and Polina already told you. But I would like to start, when talking about the decision process, I'd like to start by introducing you into the set of choices people have in Saxony for flood prevention and flood adaptation. So the insurance scheme in Germany is non-compulsory for flood insurance. There is an ongoing debate about whether this should be changed, but at the moment it's not mandatory. It's an optional part in the building insurance and in the home content insurance. So this is, at the moment, it's not the default solution. to have flood insurance in Germany. And the insurance density is somewhere above 50%. This differs from between the federal states. And beside insurance, people can also implement technical solutions for their buildings. The backwater valve is often requested as a condition to get flood insurance. And there are other options like permanent flood-resistant doors or temporary flood barriers, or elevate the electrical installations. And in Saxony, we have a really nice instrument for these technical solutions and structural measures, which is the flood certificate. And this is an individual on-site consultation where people, like experts, will come to your building and they will assess the vulnerability, and then they will recommend tailored adaptation options, keeping in mind the costs and benefit of these options and whether they would be profitable for you. And the certificate is funded up to 80%, which leaves people with, I think, around 100 or 150 euros of left of payment they have to carry on their own. And these technical solutions are also funded up to 50% and up to 20,000 euros. So yeah, these are the options. Now, when we talk about the behavioral aspects, I will provide some theoretical background of what Kamelia already presented, which is, first of all, the basic model of protection motivation. So we have risk perception, and we have the perceived ability of coping this risk, which both of these aspects affect the intention for damage prevention, which thereby affects the actual proactive damage behavior. And we already saw that there's a lot more than just these two main factors. So there are a lot of other aspects, and they have impact on risk perception, they have impact on the perceivement of coping ability. There are a lot of feedback effects, so it's much more complex than that. And of course, we also have the context conditions of this individual who has to make this decision. And now people could argue, or sometimes they do, that the objective coping ability, like financial restrictions and everything like that, is the real factor behind prevention action. And in fact, there were surveys, but no, there were studies researching about this issue, and they found out that comparing the socioeconomic models, where they used stuff like financial ability to explain prevention behavior, compared to socio-psychological models, where they took all those psychological factors into account, showed that the psychological aspects actually better to predict prevention behavior. And including them in the model significantly improves the model fit. So yeah, this shows that these factors are really good in explaining people's behavior, which leads to the general recommendation that these psychological factors should definitely be acknowledged, and the perception errors should be addressed. Now, we already heard a lot about possible measures, how to do this, and I want to talk a little bit more about specific ways of communication. So the first one is the ability to control the extent of potential damage. So people really need to grasp all the options they have and how suitable they are and how much ability they give them to control the damage. And another thing to think about is how you communicate statistical information. Like when we talk about HQ 100 flood events, people perceive this as, okay, there's a 1% chance that this will happen to me next year. but they, like, you could reframe this and think about the cumulative probability of it. So people don't only use their building, they don't only live in their building for 1 year, they probably live there for 25, 30, or 50 years. And this cumulative probability adds up over the years. So it's better to keep this time frame in mind and explain to them in the next 25 years the probability that you will live through one HQ 100 flood event is actually above 20%. So just keep in mind that people don't handle statistics every day, and even if they do, it's still a bit more complicated. So reframing these information can really help people to assess the actual risk. Another thing which is proven to be really usable is worst case scenario, including in the risk communication. When we talk about HQ 100 floods or HQ 200 floods, these are low probability, high impact events. So people see the comparably low risk because of the low probability, and this does not exceed their threshold to decide to get insurance. So what would be useful is to bundle multiple hazards into a multi-hazard insurance for them to see all the risks they cover and therefore exceeding this threshold and foster their decision to buy insurance. And another thing I want to highlight, especially for insurers, is that they have historical loss data, and they can include these historical loss data into the risk communication. Now, obviously, they cannot just publish them because this is sensitive information, but you can think about categorizing them, talking about how much damage occurred below 5,000 euros, how much damage from 5,000 to 50,000 and above. So you can think about how you could bundle this information and use it to translate the event into potential loss, into potential financial loss for people. Doing this in Germany you would have to keep in mind that the insurance density is somewhere above 50%. So this could not picture everything, but it could help. And what we already heard from Polina, and which is also the German Insurer Association point of view and from a lot of other people, is that you should combine this risk transfer in form of insurance with risk reduction measures, with adaptation measures. And a really nice study from the UFZ a few years ago showed that risk communication is especially suitable to enhance the implementation of technical adaptation solutions. I talked to Sebastian Goltz, who is one of the initiators of the flood certificate in Saxony, and he also recommended that insurers use this as a rating criterion for although here I have to say that he recommends they proceed to integrate it further because there are some insurers in Saxony who already work with it. And we also talked about potential ways to further improve this certificate. And one thing he mentioned is that the funding should be expanded. So if you think about implementing such a certificate, it should be funded. It's also important not only to recommend certain measures, but also recommend like craftsmen who can do this, who can implement them. So the consultation above the idea of structural measures. One problem with these measures is that they don't really have quality criteria. So this would be necessary, a necessary step for insurers to assess their, how good they work. And how much vulnerability is reduced. And one thing that he also mentioned is that adaptation is a really specific individual task. So there has to be specific regional guidance for the risks and for the adaptation measures. I'd like to end with taking a look at this flood management circle, where you can see that we talked about risk knowledge at the risk assessment level. We talked about prevention and mitigation and protection through structural measures. We talked about flood insurance, but what is also really important point is to educate people on how to react in the case of an emergency. So this involves raising awareness, this involves proper warning systems. Yeah, also just teach them to react the right way and let them know what to do in case of an emergency. And I think this is a really, really good picture on like how to capture everything. Thank you. I hope this was helpful.
So we have some minutes for questions.
Can I ask you just to repeat to understand correctly? You say that it's 100, 150. This is the price of the price for the consultancy for the certificate, and after they come after the measures is implemented. And do they issue also additional recommendation if something is not okay? How it's work actually?
No, so the price for the certificate is around 900 to 1,000 euros, and it's funded up to 80%. But like the price differs a bit. I think it's a little bit less than 900, but yeah. So there's the 100 euros I mentioned is approximately the price people have to pay when you already take into account the subsidies. And this flood certificate works the way that the experts come to your house, they assess your vulnerability for flood damage, and they recommend measures. And then the next step, and this is what Mr. Gold said, that there should probably be more guidance. The next step for the building owners is to look for a company to implement these measures, but they don't get guidance for that. This is up to them to, let's say they recommend that they have a flood resistant door in their basement, and then they have to find someone who offers this, and they have to pay for it, and then they get 50% back from the state of Saxony. And
the price of the cost of the measures.
Yes,
50% back from the Saxony authority.
On the government, yeah, but only up to 20,000 euros. So if you really have something like really structural measures, it can exceed this. The last step is for the expert to come back, and they will
ensure that it's inspected.
No, they're not the insurers, but they will check whether, let's say, the door is installed, but they cannot really assess, or they don't have to check whether it's installed in the right way and whether it's actually working. They just check if it's there, and then they get the kind of confirmation, and then they can get their money back from the state of Saxony, or like this 50%. But this is one problem. He highlighted that there are no quality criteria. So if you want to implement this into your insurance system, you probably need some kind of confirmation of, does this actually work the way it was recommended to? Because the reduction in vulnerability is only confirmed theoretically. They say, okay, like a flood-proof door at this point would make sense, but they don't look at the specific implemented measure. They don't look at the actual door and say, okay, this door does work.
Yeah, but it's still something.
Yeah.
The monitoring of the effectiveness is another thing also after the event happened.
I understood now a little bit better this flood certificate. So it's really a subsidized thing from experts like engineers in some company coming into your house because you say, I would like to have this, and then you okay, and then and there's no conditions to follow up. This is what I get. Okay.
Yes.
My point is that, just so you know, that in Norway, and I'm sure it might be in Germany, the insurance company, they, at least one or two, they say, okay, we can, if you want to change to us from your company and go into our insurance company, we will go to your house and we will check everything. Electricity, how you are, blah, 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 sort of same thing. And so that's a type that you can, a survey from the insurance company to say, okay, we will actually help you to look at what you can do yourself. So that's a survey but then you have to move over to our insurance company. So that's another possibility. And of course, when you talk about bundling insurance, then this was made, I was part of a report actually back to 2016 under the European Commission, and we looked at which type of insurance schemes are the most sustainable. And this is what you find in Spain, in France, and Norway, where this has been bundled for years. You know, so they go through in this report all of the different insurance solutions in all of the countries, and then there you can see how they rate the most sustainable. So that would probably support the report you're referring to. And the third part, I can send it to you later. And the third part is that we had a discussion in Norway 2016 when I worked for on behalf of all the insurance companies in Finance Norway, because there was that the house that was taken by the flood was built back on the same place. So this is very normal. You just build back in the same way. You don't add anything to build back better. You just build back because you're following the law on the technical regulations in the law. You know, that's it. Then you're still insured. And the insurance company didn't have any, you know, anything adding, like if you build there and there, you just follow the regulations in the land use planning laws and all the technical solution, which is 99% what's happening. And then 2 years later, the new flooding took the same house. And then the insurance company says, hey, we're not going to pay this. You know, we can't keep paying for the same thing. Even though in Norway you have to have a NatCat solution because it's bundled. So when you buy an insurance company, you buy a house insurance, you get automatically natural catastrophes, flooding, etc. Anyway, so this, just to end up, this dialogue ended up, we had a long dialogue with the different ministries, and we ended up in getting that they said, well, can you fix it so that the house will get the insured, which is losing its house, not only get paid for the house, but also the property. So if you have to move because they said you cannot stay here anymore, the house is going to be flooded. So you need a new property to build up the new house. And this is now paid by the insurance company. Did you get it? Yeah. So that was a very new thing. And we had to calculate what does this mean, etc. But that's a new thing that would be interesting to follow up on. You know, like why did we have this change? How can this change be replicated into other countries, etc. And and I think with new in Bulgaria, they should also start have a discussion on how would it be possible to have some sort of mandatory insurance cover for either NatCat or flooding, like we have in Spain, France, Norway, and which you are discussing now in Germany, and they are discussing in Italy, and they're discussing in Greece. So that could be, you know, why should we have it? Why should we not have it? I mean, the insurance doesn't like it, but I mean, it works in some of our countries. So, okay, that's it. That's enough for me. Thank you, Sina.
Yeah, thank you, Mia. I will text you later about that report. I don't think I read that. And I also think that the Build Back Better aspect is really important for insurers to keep in mind. And regarding mandatory insurance, I think that there's this problem of acceptance in Germany, which could perhaps be better if you really have this bundled mandatory insurance. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mia.
Okay. No, we got one also on workers' compensation, and everything's very chaos in the beginning, and then you get an idea over time, like what is the loss ratio. You know, so now it works. Everything, all changes are painful, so we just have to. Okay. Thank you, Sina. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I think at the end we are.
Just to add here that in Bulgaria, but not only in Bulgaria, I think mandatory insurance is something that it was discussed, but not usually with very pros and cons. It's not really, especially like not reducing at all the moral hazard and many other cons. But it's very important to bundle actually the natural catastrophe, all climate risks to be bundled together, and not to have this situation when you have, like you mentioned or Zina mentioned, or you have flood from rain, but it's not insured from another kind of flood. This is something that it's already in the recommendation, I think, from EIOPA. And in Bulgaria, we have not cut coverage, but I was surprised to find out that some of the other countries where we are working, our group, actually don't have, they have different covers for flood, for fire, and not exactly not cut one coverage for all this. This is in Germany, actually, maybe the case.
Yeah, each country define actually this different. Nat cat is not the common standardized definition. So each country
climate related perils, maybe.
Yeah, no, but each have to. We are very conscious about not having precipitation in a city, because that is a city that cannot cope with rain. So that has been left out, and we had long discussions if it should be part, and it's not part of the insurance natural catastrophe. Natural catastrophe is an act of God, which is nobody can help for.
This is an origin, maybe, yeah, but now
well, we try to stick to that. We try to stick to that, to say, you know, you get cover. You do get cover for it. So don't misunderstand me. You do get cover for rain in a city that flows into your house. But it's not part of this natural scheme, because we have these special natural schemes like in France and Spain, that we keep it outside of this natural catastrophe scheme. It's a bit complicated, but this means like the scheme means like you don't pay more in natural catastrophe as an insurance more than you have market. So if you have a 20% market, this is what you pay. So you have to understand the scheme before to understand a little bit more. Okay? Yeah, I think we're done here.
Thank you very much for the meeting. It was really interesting, and I'm gonna do the note and so on. So thank you, everyone. I hope it was a good meeting for you and that you learned something. And have a nice day and good weekend.
Thank you, Ayana.
Thank you.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.